Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm going to talk today about how to study prosthodontics, especially if you're going to do a board exam, if you're going to study postgraduate studies in prosthodontics. Prosthodontics is a very big subject that contains a lot of specialties, and as you know from the glossary of prosthodontic terminology, the glossary of prosthodontic terminology is like a dictionary specialized in prosthodontic terms. It is produced by the American Society Prosthodontic Academy, American Academy, and they have been publishing it and republishing it, and now it's in the 9th edition. Okay, and those responsible for it are those many they are societies and groups and different academies that work on it. So it is a highly specialized glossary. So this is the dictionary of dentistry. Let us begin here. So you always have to have glossary of prosthodontic terminology. In that glossary, you will find that they have divided prosthodontics into 4 specialties. Okay, these are subspecialties in prosthodontics. Go and revise them, and we're going to talk today about the fixed. Okay, so how we're going to study fixed prosthodontics. In general, prosthodontics is, even if I'm going to take this subdivision of prosthodontics, it is a huge division. It is a huge subject that I need to cut it into small pieces so I could understand it better. So my recommendation always for prosthodontic specialists and those who want to do the exam is always get your textbooks, okay, for the specialty. Where do we get these textbooks? We could simply look at different dental programs presenting prosthodontics, and we will find the textbooks that they recommend. And for fixed, usually the textbooks are the one for Rosenstiel and the other one for Schellenberg, and then there's a third one making crowns and bridges. There is another textbook, it's called Textbook of Prosthodontics. It is from India, and that textbook is designed to be like a notes only. It's not something to explain. It's not based on paragraphs, full paragraphs. They simply make it short and up to the point as notes. Okay, so these are
تبع الفايفا.
لا مش فايفا and prosthodontics.
okay.
It's called Textbook of Prosthodontics. Okay. If I'm going to look at these textbooks, okay, I will have 3 or 4 textbooks for the same subject. So these are 4. How am I going to study? I'm going to always try to first choose one. Whatever you choose, one of these 4 textbooks, I choose one of them. Okay, this is the first step. Choose one of the books. Then go to the chapter that you want to study. Suppose we're going to talk about crown preparation. Okay, it might be in a chapter here, maybe in a separate chapter here, but it would be in another chapter. It will be part of a chapter, not the whole chapter. Okay, so I'm going to first pick my subject, and then I'm going to study it from one reference only. Okay, this is in detail. Okay, this is detail studying. So it is the book that I will depend. Suppose that I'm going to choose Rosenstiel, and this is what I recommend. Rosenstiel book is the biggest one and the largest one. It has a lot of information. It's now in its latest edition. It has a lot of detail, and I would consider that as my textbook. Usually you are a prosthodontist, so you need to work with the biggest book possible. Okay, begin there. So suppose I've chosen this book. You can choose any book, by the way, but it's just to make it easier for you. The second step, when I'm going to study this, I'm going to study it in full detail from that chapter, from that book. Then I'm going to read the same subject. Suppose I'm concentrating today on crowns. I'm going to read that same subject from the second book. Okay, just reading. I have studied this, and the first one I've studied, memorized, and put notes and maybe mind maps, whatever helps me to understand the information in it. The second book is only reading. Then I add to that book, I begin adding here anything that I found different or additional. Suppose one of the books was talking about Methods. Suppose I'm talking about soft tissue management around crowns. One of the books did not talk about lasers, what the other did talk about lasers, okay? Simply that information, okay, I would put in the paragraph, maybe soft tissue management around crowns. Around that paragraph, on the side notes, lasers, Schellenberg, chapter, so-and-so, page, so-and-so. So that subject is not present here, maybe. I'm just talking about different examples. Okay, so that chapter, that sub-subject, it's a minimal point that has not been mentioned in the first book. I put it in the notes in the first book. So I'm still in the first book. On the side, I say for lasers in soft tissue management, I'm going to go for مثلا Schellenberg, page so-and-so. Okay, then I will find another subject that it's not mentioned in the first book. So I'll write that down, and just by the notes, I would say, for example, one of the maybe gel tissue expanders that expand and they work as cords. They are gel forms that expand the socket, the sulcus around the tooth, and create like a space around or a trough. And then that book was talking about the gel types, okay, or foam types. So that book, the first book, was not talking about it. So I'll say gel, it's book so and so. Maybe in the third book I found that information, and I'll page so and so. Okay. My second recommendation then is to complete your textbooks. So whatever you read here, any note that you find missing, put it in the first book. So your first book is like your reference always. So that way you will not be distracted between books, okay? You will never be distracted. خلاص, the information that's missing, I'm just going to put it here and say it's in book so-and-so and it's in page so-and-so, okay? Now, the third thing I recommend for my students is put the book in, divide the book, separate the papers, okay, and put it in folders, okay, and bring a big box file and bring envelope files, you know them. So each chapter will be bounded together, okay, and then put in that envelope. So the first chapter, the second chapter, the third chapter is in this box file. This box file, I'll begin adding in between my review articles, because dentistry, prosthodontic dentistry in books are very distributed and widely distributed and mentioned many times in the book at different places. So I need to know my what is the latest. The textbook is a bit old, and maybe the latest material is not there. The latest technologies are not there yet in the book, because this book is teaching basic knowledge. The latest reviews I need to take, reviews and systematic reviews, okay? These systematic reviews, I begin, suppose that I've studied the crown, I've read the books and found the differences, okay? And then I'm going to go for review articles and systematic reviews using my keywords. Okay. So how do I deal with my keywords? First, I'm going to look for reviews and systematic reviews. Okay, this will be first even because it's more important. Systematic reviews is always the first because they will give you the best of the best knowledge about this subject. But sometimes systematic reviews are not enough because they will tell you there was not enough evidence, the net result of that systematic review. So what we will do, we will get reviews, okay? But the idea here is collecting keywords. So what are keywords related to crown? Give me one. Crown. Okay.
Porcelain.
Porcelain. What other? Yeah. Preparation.
Chamfer.
Chamfer. Finish lines. Axial reduction. Closure reduction. Function clasp. Whatever I find as a keyword, I collect those keywords. Now I begin looking for reviews, looking at crowns, for example. Maybe I'll find a review about material, maybe I'll find a review about finish lines, maybe I'll find a review about reductions, maybe I'll find a review about monolithic material, new monolithic, whatever the subject is. Maybe I find a review about the hemostatic agent, so I'll find a review about cords alone. See that big subject. Now, management of soft tissue, I'll find sub-subjects inside, like cords, Retraction cords, just a review article about retraction cords, a review article about homeostatic agents, maybe a review article about lasers in soft tissue management. Maybe I'll find a review article about other types, gel method, for example, gel preparations and foams that go into the sulcus and expand the sulcus. Maybe I'll find reviews about that. And maybe I'll find a big review like soft tissue management, or I'll find them as small reviews, retraction cords and how to use the retraction cords, or whatever. So those review articles and systematic reviews, I'm going to add them in between the chapters. So I have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, each one in an envelope. Then I'll begin after chapter 1, whatever I collected from the keywords, I will put the review articles about that. Maybe I'll find, for example, I was looking at chapter 1, it's about examination and records for the patient. I'll find a review article about how to record photography, how to do dental records, what are dental records. I like that review article, so I put it in place. I'll always add. Okay, so chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on. So whenever I'm going to read, I'll always find my material irrelevant in location. I'm not distracted. So this is the best way for studying if you are a postgraduate prosthodontist, or you are you are examining for your board exam, and you will take the best of the best knowledge, okay, in the subject. You are going to look for them, yes. This is part of your self-learning activities. Any other question? Okay. Do you find it reasonable? Logical?
Yes.
Yes. Have you been distracted before by the books? Definitely. A large amount of books, and you need to make them physical in one place, and you might do this electronically if you like to do chapter 1 is so and so, and then in the folder you will put other review articles in that subject. You can do it electronically. Some people like to do it physically as a file, box file, and you can choose that, okay? But remember that whatever you touch and you write is going to retain better than what you read electronically, okay? This is a scientific rule that goes everywhere, and many schools are leaving their tablets and leaving their electronic devices and going back to writing and reading physical material, because touching the material and reading from a book is totally different than reading from an electronic source. Finally, I would advise you, if I've collected my keywords, I would go back to the glossary of prosthodontic terminology, this one. Going back to it, I'm going to my glossary of prosthodontic terms, and then I'm going to memorize each definition related to the procedure I'm doing, okay? Why do I need to memorize it? Because glossary of prosthodontic terminology tells that you are a specialist, okay? When you use that terminology, that means you are using the correct terminology that specialists use, okay? You're not confusing words together. For example, if I'm in complete denture, what is the post-dam? What is the post-dam area? The post-dam is on the denture. The post-dam area, or the seal, post-palatal seal area, this is describing the tissue, okay? So as a prosthodontist, confusing those two terminology is a huge mistake, okay? In board exams or whatever, somebody's talking to you and you cannot describe what you mean correctly, this is a problem. This is why glossary of prosthodontic terms is very essential. Suppose I'm going to talk about crown preparation. It is a very big problem if you cannot differentiate between a chamfer finish line and a chamfer burr. The chamfer finish line can be produced by many burrs. It is a huge mistake if you cannot differentiate between the burr morphology and the finish line morphology. Okay, or if I'm going to talk about axial reduction, for example, the taper, if you confuse the taper of the tooth with the taper of the burr, so the tooth taper on one side is half of the burr's taper, okay, then because the total burr's taper is this, both of them, but when we're contacting the tooth, it's half of it. So these things, confusing the terminology, especially those closely related together, does not make you distinguished as a specialist if you confuse those terminology. How do I make sure that I'm using the correct terminology in the correct place? Using the glossary of prosthodontic terms. This redefines what you understand about a material or a subject or a device or a concept or a so and so when you talk or explain it using the glossary of prosthodontic terminology, because this is what the society has made consensus about. So when I say so and so, that exactly means that meaning. So they have done that effort, and they have done they have sponsored many editions of this glossary. Many societies have been involved in it. Many academies have been involved in it until they got this final glossary. So we have glossary 9 now. This is the 9th edition that we will be using. Okay, this is just a general view on how to study prosthodontics. Okay, thank you very much.